Hello, welcome to Southeastern 16. I'm Chris Lee, joined by Graham Doty, and we are continuing our off-season interviews with baseball head coaches. Today, Vanderbilt coach Tim Corbin joins us. Tim, thanks for joining us. We're doing this right before Thanksgiving. We got the Christmas tree up in the background. Can't see that already. Thank you for making time at a busy time of the year. Are we calling it the Christmas tree? We had that discussion already. I'll just let you go with that where you like.
Yeah, I'm just switching the monitor over here so everyone can get a look at it. Yeah, that's it. It's Maggie's Christmas tree. She decorates it. It's Christmas now. We're kind of not skipping Thanksgiving, but we just went from Halloween to Christmas on the tree. So that's Maggie's doing, but I take advantage of it. It brightens everything up in here.
You mean you're not decorating your own stuff?
No. I don't do that. Don't do that. Not
Yeah.
talented enough to do that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's knowing your lane. But
Yeah.
hey, I want to
Yeah.
ask you something. As we're doing this, Vanderbilt's in the middle of a playoff chase for football. I know you're friends with Clark Lee, and I know you and Diego Pavi have gotten pretty close, which is interesting. I think he's come to you as kind of a mentor. Tell people about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I met Diego through Clark, and actually one of our players too, Jacob Humphrey, who got very close with Diego during the summer, not last summer, but the summer before, when Jacob was staying behind to work out, and it was Diego's first summer here, and he was transitioning to Vanderbilt. So I remember Hump came in and he said, "Hey, Corb, there's this quarterback," and he said, "I think you'd like him." He said that they're going to beat Alabama this year. And I said, "Okay, that's pretty heavy." I said, "Hump, a lot of people have said that before." And he said, "Yeah, but," he goes, I believe this guy." And I said, "You do?" He goes, "Yeah, you meet him. I think you'll believe him too." Well, he introduced me to him, and since that time, our introduction, I've got to know Diego and his family pretty well. We've gone out to dinner with his mom and his brothers probably 3 or 4 times on these Sundays after football games. So we've enjoyed that. But Diego is a very curious kid. He loves to ask questions. Maggie and I we have an affinity for him, and I appreciate Clark sharing him with us because that's a football player. But because of him too, I've got to know a lot of other guys too. I went to the UFC fight last Saturday, and I actually went by myself. I had to go up there. I missed one of our players' weddings, but I had to go up there anyway. But I went to the UFC fight, and Diego was there with two of his teammates, and got to spend a little bit of time with him. So, I love Diego, and I love what he's doing for the university and the school.
Coach, Vandy football's having the magical run. I'm sure you can relate to this as well. Like, what's more challenging? Is it the build or is it sustaining it?
That's a good question, Graham, because a lot of people have asked that before. The build was difficult for sure, but the build is a lot of energy, and there's a lot of intensity in a small window of time. I'd say within 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're trying to establish a program. You're trying to create an environment that at some point may turn into a culture. But I hear that word thrown around a lot, and culture is over time. It takes a long period of time to do that. But I would say now, being here 24 years, being consistent every year is very difficult because it requires that you have to reset your energy again. And I think going back to my time at Presbyterian, to Clemson, to here, I feel fortunate that I've been able to stay healthy and have a surplus of energy that allows me to um, stay vibrant and stay at least close to these kids in terms of what they're doing and how they do it. The one thing that is changing inside this program is my age. That locker room never changes. That locker room to my left is always 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age. And so my age being 64, 65, there's like great separation in that locker room and my age. So what I find myself doing is having to find a way to lessen that margin of time and age by identifying with student athletes of that age. And that requires a lot of energy and time too. So I would say, Graham, that stabilizing it and trying to stay consistent is very, very difficult.
How much more difficult is that now than it was 5 years ago before the world blew up with NIL and the portal? Like, I know you had a very set way that you had your program built. It was a copy and paste. It worked extremely well for you. And then the conditions of the game just kind of scatter all that to the wind. How have you adjusted from all that? How comfortable you feel where you are with those things?
Yeah, I think it started during COVID when they gave everyone an extra year, and I was a voice, and I wasn't a strong voice, but I was a voice that was talking to a lot of organizations then, thinking that's not going to be good for the sport long term. What it's going to do is it's going to give a lot of people years. It's going to stunt high school kids coming in. And I just felt like life moves on, just like it did for Ted Williams when he missed 3 years of big league baseball because he had to fly planes. And they didn't say, okay, well, then you get 3 years back. I mean, it's like you lost 3 years. That's kind of what life serves you sometimes. And he rebounded very well, obviously, by his numbers. But I think for kids back then, we did stunt the high school kids coming in, and I didn't think that was fair. But what it ended up happening is because of that surplus of players, then the portal became a thing, and then obviously, NIL became a thing. It was like a perfect storm of these big forces that came together, and then all hell broke loose. People moved wherever they wanted to move. We gave people exit strategies without any recourse, and there were monies that were just given to players based on their talent, not necessarily human talent, but their physical talents. No, I didn't think it was a good thing, and I still don't think it was a good thing. Now, there's parts of it that I do think are good because I do think helping and rewarding student athletes is essential. But how we're doing it, I don't feel like that's the right arm to do it. We've adjusted over time. We've used transfers to some degree, almost as patchwork, to cover ourselves when we have high school kids that sign professionally. But outside of that, we've just tried to keep it Vanderbilt. I still understand that we're representing the university, and representing the university, I don't want to get too far away from its mission. And if its mission was solely just recruit the best athletes, not student, just athletes, then what would happen is then we'd be going after kids with not really concerned about what they are as humans. And I don't care for that. You've been around me a long period of time, but the human element of what we do here is very important to me, and I cherish that a great deal. So I'm still looking for kids that are very skilled from a academic standpoint, an athletic standpoint, and I also want guys that care about other people and care about doing things well. And I don't think that's common just because of the situation itself. But I think we've adapted to some degree, but adapting in a world where it's changed has certainly put some strain on the position.
You have been in this conference for over 20 years now. How does it compare and contrast on and off the field from when you first started to what life is like right now?
It's way different, Graham, just because number one, there's way more schools. When I first got in, there was 12, and you had 8 schools that went to the SEC tournament every year. It moved to 14, then moved to 16. So now we're in certainly a power conference, and all of major Division I is that way too. Um, it's very there are a lot of resources. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. There's just a lot of resources spent on coaches, the athletes, and the expectation level. But the expectation levels probably they fall in line with what the universities are doing for for the coaches and for the players. The landscape, it's entertainment for the fans, it's capitalism for the athletic department, and it's socialism for the athletes. And I would say it's loosely tethered to education. And I think at Vanderbilt, it's still student athlete. It is. But I can't say that that's the case everywhere else. I mean, there are some kids that probably attend a school, but I don't know if they ever walk across the lawns of their campus to go to a class. And I still feel very lucky that I'm attending a school that does that. But it's because of just what the universities are doing for the coaches and for the athletes, then there's high expectations. That's why we've got this very expensive game of coaches musical chairs out there right now. So you've got coaches that are leaving and going somewhere else. And frankly, I love the fact that, and I don't, with Clark, I just want Clark to be at Vanderbilt forever. Now, whether he's at Vanderbilt forever or not, I don't know, but I just want to see him build it here. I like the fact that Lane Kiffin's done a great job at Ole Miss. I really do. Does he stay at Ole Miss? I would love to see that professionally for him, because I just feel like it's almost like his program. He identifies it with Ole Miss. I like the fact that people can build in their own space and just stay there for a course of time. And that's, you're not going to see a lot of Mike Krzyzewski's. You're not going to see a lot of Tom Izzo's. I think those coaches are few and far between, but I do have great pride in being at a place for 24 years where we only had to learn one fight song and not 6 and not 5, not like an athlete, and not make different gestures with your fingers because you're performing the logo or of the school. I just like the fact that I've been a Vanderbilt Commodore for a long period of time, and done it in a very similar fashion for a long period of time too.
Tim, you've had a few months since the end of last season. It was a weird one for you. You kind of started, I don't know, teens in the rankings. People didn't think you were going to host for a long time. You had that run at the end. You played a brutal schedule. You ended up the number 1 seed. And I know the regional didn't go your way, but still a huge accomplishment to do what you guys did and won the tournament. I know postseason is where everybody focuses, and like that matters. I know that was tough for you, but how do you digest last year now as we're sitting close to Thanksgiving, having had time to do that in your head?
Yeah, I mean, the postseason, we came up short as a team, but I don't want that to take away from how that team really evolved and how we grew during the course of the season, because we did. I mean, that was a team that midway through the season, I don't know who would have really given us really thought that Vanderbilt would be a number 1 seed, and that includes the person that's talking to you right now. It's like our goal was just to continue to get better and better and better throughout the season, and we did that. We found ourselves kind of midway through. Once we got by, we got through Arkansas, we went down to Florida and took 3 there, and then I think the Oklahoma weekend was kind of a turning point for us in a lot of ways. I think specifically for the team and the boys themselves, because we went 1-3 there, but we kind of flipped things when we came back here and won the series against Georgia and swept them. We had we went 1-2 at Ole Miss, but yet won in a convincing manner on the last weekend. But then, big games against Alabama, especially the last one when we won in walk-off fashion. Then, Tennessee series was a big one for us. And then we just started to gain momentum and, beat Kentucky 3 times, went 3-0 in the SEC tournament, which was good, and won the tournament title 3-2 against Ole Miss. And then, I think offensively, that's where we kind of sputtered, and it's no fault on anyone. I know we made a coaching change at the end, and I don't want that to fall upon one person, because that's not fair and that's not right. It's just that we were kind of sputtering as a group. But I think, in looking back, being a number 1 seed probably wasn't the best thing for Vanderbilt, because we were 4th in the conference, but yet played well towards the end. So we had a lot of momentum, but that probably was heavy for us. Not that we talked a lot about it, but I think, you're a Vanderbilt baseball player. I mean, you probably feel the weight of okay, we got to get through a regional. We got to, we're hosting a regional. We got to get through it. And that weighs, there's some weight to that. And trying to take that away from your team is very important. But we just couldn't work through it. We lost 3 one-run games or 2 one-run games at the end. And all our baseball at the end was all one-run games. So we were
Yeah.
playing good, close baseball. We just couldn't, there wasn't much separation offensively. And at the end, that did us in.
You recently wrapped up fall ball. What do you find is the most like critical part of this time of year? Like, do you work on the field? Do you work on team chemistry? Like, what do you find works the best for you?
Building the engine of the team, Graham, I think is the most important piece. Before we get started with baseball, and Chris probably knows this, is before we get started with baseball, a lot of classroom time is identifying them, just trying to identify who they are as people and start the character piece of male behaviors. And then you get into baseball, and then it becomes all baseball. And then the last 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks we haven't had baseball, it goes back to what I talked about at the beginning. It's more about building the engine of the team and team development. I enjoy that as much as I do baseball because I think that plays good. Connection is connective teams is a very important piece of championship type behavior, because I would tell you that there's more things in our world, and that's including you and Chris and myself, that take us away from being connected to our families and the people that we spend a lot of time with. And we know what those things are. So trying to really connect the group in a very intimate manner and have conversations that most males don't, but do, in our world, we want to, just so we can bring out behaviors that become emotional. Because when you do what you do, which in our world is baseball, you do it better when you do it for other people outside of yourself. And so the biggest thing that we do here is just try to build the engine of the group and that connective piece that allows them to form a team and develop into a team that can do special things because of their skills. I do think we have pretty good skills, but at the same time, great teams don't win championships. Great connected teams win championships. So the connection piece obviously is important.
Yeah, I know you spend a lot of your time and emphasis on that and teamwork and chemistry, but the tangible baseball part, what did you learn about your team this fall? Maybe your assets, where you're would like to get better, and maybe the things that you just don't know enough to know the answers there yet. Where do you stand with the baseball element of your team?
I think we're skilled for sure. I think the areas of question right now is where to put those skilled players, Chris, because I feel like, and I remember this happened in 19, and I'm not comparing 19 to this team, but going home for Christmas break, we didn't know who was going to play third base. We didn't know who was going to play shortstop, and we didn't know who was going to play second. And quite frankly, we didn't know who was going to catch, because we had Steven Scott from 2018 and Philip Clark that was kind of emerging as a catcher. And then the outfield, Pat DeMarco was running around in center field, but I couldn't tell you, outside of JJ Bleday, it was probably Bleday, DeMarco, and Infante were the 3 guys that were kind of tethered to the positions. And outside of that, we didn't know who was going to play what. I would say that's kind of more of what we've got right now. Barzy will get behind the plate and catch, but he's backed up in a pretty good manner by Mac Whitcomb, who could certainly DH for us and catch, because he's a really qualified hitter. Outside of that, I wouldn't be able to tell you who's playing first, second, short, or third, because we've had a lot of bodies there. Brody played third. Brody Johnston played third last year and did a good job of that. We don't have Vastine anymore, so the shortstop position's open. And, you've got Riker Waite, who's played there and had a real good Cape summer. Rustin Rigdon's playing short. Brody Johnston's playing short. So we do have some pretty good pieces there. We had Rustin at second base at the end of last year, but Mancini's played there too. We've got Mike also running around in the outfield. So it's kind of jumbled. Holcomb has played third. He's played first. He's played center field, which I think when people say Holcomb, 6'5", 235-pound center fielder, he does pretty well out there. He He gets good jumps on the baseball, and he's a really good athlete. So Braden can do a lot of different things for us. So I think what we need to do, and I know this for certain, is just get those guys in positional order, so they can get back. The guys who have been hurt will probably help us too. That's Max Jensen, the first baseman from Cornell, who's a really good hitter, and now he's starting to play more live. He's probably at about 90% after having knee surgery last spring. And then Chris Maldonado's coming back from an injury too, and he's jumping into the mix too. So we've got a lot of different kids. We've got some youth, but we've got some older kids too. Not Carter Johnstone. He's the younger brother of Logan Johnstone, but Logan Johnstone is a fifth-year outfielder. It's a good player. Carter Johnstone was at Cal State Fullerton and was the WAC freshman of the year. So he's a really good hitter. So we've got some pieces. It's just a matter of putting them in the right spots.
What's the timeline on something like that? When do you get a good sense and feel for what you have and kind of what you want your 1 through 9 to look like?
I think 1 through 9 will I think we can stretch our lineup offensively a little bit deeper than most years. I like that piece. I would say, Graham, because we're going to be able to start January 13th this year with the NCAA, that's going to help us. It's like 2 weeks earlier than we have in any year that I've ever been here. So that's a good thing. So the ramp up time will be good. That's going to allow us at least to get guys in positional order, I'd say, by the end of January, beginning of February, so we can get these guys consistent. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But I think from an offensive standpoint, we've got some depth to, and I know I can say that every year, but this one looks a little bit longer in terms of lineup and what we're capable of doing.
The pitching side of things, I know you spend your fall stretching guys out. You don't really believe in roles as much, although it feels like maybe Connor Fennell might be a guy who can start for you. What do you make of the pitching pieces you have? Are you anywhere close to knowing what roles could potentially be?
Well, you mentioned Connor, and Connor's certainly a role finder as a starter. I mean, he did a nice job for us last year, and as the season continued, he just got better with it. He's a very confident young man. He competes as well as anyone we've had in our program. He stays in his lane with his stuff. He knows what his stuff is. He's overpowering, but yet he wouldn't tell you he professes to be overpowering. He's just that guy that really can pitch off of everything he's doing. He's got to get better because people will have more of a microscope on him this year in terms of what he does and how he's done it in the past. But then after that, I look at Austin Nye as one of those potential starters too. He's certainly gotten better. He really performed well during the course of the fall, and he's very healthy, which health was, I didn't even think he pitched much last year. And this is a kid who grew into that kind of that Walker Buehler Tuesday starter, and then he just evolves into an SEC starter for us. So I like him a lot. I like Matt Shorey. Matt Shorey pitched some for us last year, but I do think he's capable of filling a starter role. He's a left-hander for us, a local kid from Father Ryan. I really like what he's done. Nate Taylor, the transfer from Georgia's, pitched well for us during the course of the fall too. And then you certainly have guys like Luke Guth and Alex Kranzler and Brennan Seiber. Those are juniors in our program that have pitched for a long period of time. Miller Green has pitched for a long period of time too. He didn't pitch for us this fall, but he certainly has been a key contributor from a starter standpoint and also a reliever. It's kind of leverage innings for him ever since he's pitched here. So he does understand that. And then I do think you got some qualified sophomores coming back that can really throw the baseball. Hudson Barton was injured at the end of last year, so we didn't get to see him a lot, but he's good. England Bryan's good. I mean, England Bryan's got a really good arm and certainly can do some heavy lifting for us this year. And I might be missing a few others that are sophomores and juniors. Jacob Faulkner is a graduate student from Princeton who is a Laredo underneath that pitched very well for us. I like him. The freshman class is good. I mean, they're talented. It's just a matter of what they do. Tyler Baird is very talented. Wyatt Neto, very talented. Nate Schlote, very, very talented. Those are going to be good pitchers for us. Connor Hamilton, local kid from NBA, is talented. Adria Casaliba from the Dominican Republic, talented kid. And then Aiden Stillman didn't get to pitch for us this fall. He's starting to throw right now, but he's a USA guy, and he's talented too. We just didn't get to see him during the course of the fall. So I think we've actually, not a lot of people will know who our parts are, maybe with the exception of Fennell and Nye and Miller Green and maybe some of those juniors. But I think we got some kids that you're going to enjoy watching pitch for us.
Tim, I've got a quick follow-up on Fennell, because I think maybe for the longest time, your most valuable guy maybe on a team was your Friday night starter. It sets the tone for everything. If you can get up 1-0 in a series, it changes the complexion of things.
Yeah.
At the same time, sometimes I think the most valuable thing in baseball is the Kevin Kopps. And you see season baseball everywhere. The guy that can just come in, whether that's the third inning with the game on the ropes or the ninth inning. I feel like Fennell is a guy that could fit any of those roles. So, like, how do you decide which one he does? Because he was so good last year in that just break glass in case of emergency kind of spot for you.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying he's kind of that silver bullet where you use him. We used Carson Fulmer in that role too before his junior year, just because he was so valuable and doing so many different things. I think you just get to the point where you try to find the comfort level of the kid and where he fits best. And you say, well, Fennell fit best everywhere. He did. He did some real special things for us. He closed a lot of games down. He would come in if we felt like we could get our starter deep enough into a ball game where Connor could throw the next 3 or 4 innings and just shut it down. He's almost like a piggyback guy. I think, he's been a starter his whole life, and he was a starter at Dayton too. Now, he vacillated with us as a starter last year, but I just think it makes sense for us to use him as a starter to kind of build up, so he can shoot that bullet during the course of his 6, 7, 8, 9 innings, whatever it is, like he did at Ole Miss last year when he came in and threw that Sunday gem. But I think he's very capable. But I think that's where we're going to start him this year. But to your point, you could use that kid in a lot of different spaces. I do think we have a couple other kids that might be able to fill that void, though, because that's a strength. If you got that silver bullet guy, it is a strength because you start using him whenever you think you've got a leverage situation on a baseball game.
Every coach is wired differently, right? One thing I've been asking all the coaches, and I think the answers are fascinating. Like, let's say after practice, after a game, how do you wind down, coach? Like, are you a reader? Do you watch movies? Are you a TV show guy? Like, what's your favorite thing to do?
I'm really dull. I don't do much. I come back into the office when I'm done for the day, and I probably work or just stay here another couple hours and preparing for the next day. I live a mile from campus, so I drive my four-wheeler here. I tell Maggie, I give her 15-minute warning and tell her I'm going to pick her up in 15 minutes. We go out to dinner every night. And I would say that's kind of our wind down. I enjoy picking her up. She's here during the course of the day, so she gets to see the players in the classroom and she gets to see the players when they train. So I like that. We've chosen to kind of live that way as a couple, and we find great satisfaction in doing that. But I think my wind down is her. She's the one that can fill in the gaps for me in terms of what's happening nationally, because I'm the proverbial camel with his head in the sand. And when I get away from Vanderbilt and baseball, then she can say, oh, by the way, this happened in our country today. I just want you informed in case someone asks you about it. And I said, thank you. And here's the president, the vice president of the United States. This is his name. And our governor is Bill Lee. And this is our mayor. Thank you. That's all I need right there. I'm covered. And but I don't watch TV. I don't watch TV at all. So,
Really? Like, not even weather? Like, you won't even
I watch weather on my app.
Okay.
So I've got this intricate weather map that now I think I'm a weatherman. So, and I tell the players that I talk to God every day about the weather, and they believe it. So and when it happens, they go, he really does talk to Big G. That's how I refer to God.
Yeah.
So that's basically my life in a nutshell. But we don't do much. We'll go see the girls in Charleston for Thanksgiving, which really enjoy because the grandkids are there. I enjoy that a great deal, and that's a kind of a good fadeaway because for us, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I speak in terms of the staff. That's kind of our getaway. We don't. The summers are intense. It's all baseball, and I think when we're done with the season. A lot of people will say, "Oh, good. Now you and Maggie can get away." Yeah, we'll get away. We'll get away from each other because of recruiting, and then we get back together again when school starts. But we have a great life. We do. I say that positively because I don't know what else I would do, and I think she probably would tell you the same thing. And I hope she's happy. I think she's very happy. But we're celebrating 30 years coming up Monday, so. We've been together a while, and I've enjoyed our relationship a great deal. She's a thinking partner, besides being my wife and my best friend. She is a thinking partner because she can give me great perspective of what's going on around me, and that's helpful.
That was an awesome answer. And real quick before you go, Chris, like one of my main takeaways is like I'm just picturing you, like you said, 4-wheeler. So are you literally on an ATV?
Yeah, it's a Polaris. Yeah,
I just imagine somebody going home like, is that Tim Corbin on a 4-wheeler? Like, I just think that would be an awesome picture or a story to tell somebody.
Yeah, we're lucky. We're lucky we have that. Yeah.
Yeah, Graham, you just took my follow-up question. I'm like, first of all, you've got to be the only Nashvilleian who drives to work in a 4-wheeler. Second of all, you might be the only guy in Nashville who can get away with that. There's got to be a story in there somewhere with what's happened on that thing.
Yeah, there is a story. Actually, years ago when I first started driving around, I didn't have a motorcycle license. I've got a motorcycle license now, so the legalities of driving this 4-wheeler around are in place. So I'm good that way. But I did get stopped occasionally, and there was one night. It was a Friday night, and I had 2 tickets to a concert downtown, and it was. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who the group was, but I guess it doesn't matter. But we were going downtown to see the concert, and Maggie called me right before I was going. She goes, "I can't go. Hannah needs me. I've got to take her to a tennis tournament." And I said, "Fine." So I wasn't going to go because I was going to go back, get the car, and then go down Broadway and go to Bridgestone. So I said, forget it. I'll just go in the 4-wheeler and take my chances. So I go down to Bridgestone in my 4-wheeler, and sure enough, a police officer pulls up right to my left. He's got the blue lights on, and he's just pointing like, pull over. So I pull over, and he said, license, registration. I give it to him, and he looked at it, and he said, "Coach Corbin." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Okay, what are you doing driving down to Bridgestone on a 4-wheeler?" And I said, "I'm going to a Rascal Flatts concert by myself." He said, "I'll tell you what." He goes, "Follow me." He goes, "I'll take you down there. I'll get a parking space." I follow him. He takes the blue lights down. I get a police escort to Rascal Flatts concert. I go in, no ticket, golden. It was great. That was my first good story being pulled over, but he took care of me, so it was great.
Yeah, for people who don't know, your office is not far from like the heart of everything Nashville. This is a bit like what is the Crow? I mean, like a 2-mile thing. But I mean, I'm guessing like police officers wake up and like they've all got those. I don't see this everyday stories. I think that would have to be one on their end.
Yeah, that was good. It was funny because I thought I was cooked, but that guy was so nice to me. I don't recall his name. I should, but it was a funny moment.
It's unbelievable. Coach, I'm curious, like it doesn't really matter the sport. I think it's rare what we see in SEC baseball that you, Mike Bianco, Dave Van Horn, even Paul Maneri to an extent, you've all been in the same conference for 15, 20 years. What has that been like over the years? And all you guys have had so much success coaching at a high level. Just I think that's cool and unique. You don't really see it. What's that been like from your point of view?
Well, I'm very grateful for being in this conference for a long period of time too. I've had a lot of association with a lot of coaches here, and Mike Bianco and Dave Van Horn have been the two that I came in with Dave the same year. Mike came in 1 year prior to us, but Dave and I actually played in the College World Series against one another when I was an assistant at Clemson and he was the head coach at Nebraska. And we opened up the Omaha against them, and it was a sea of red. It was just all Nebraska fans. I'll never forget it. And then the next year he was at Arkansas, and then I obviously came to Vanderbilt. But I'm lucky that we have the coaches meeting every September in Birmingham, and that room's changed a lot. There's been a lot of different faces inside that room. There's been teams that have had 4 and 5 different coaches in my tenure here. So I feel very lucky that, I've been at Vanderbilt for 24 years and remained here. And as I said, just learned one fight song. So I've enjoyed it, but met a lot of great people too. I would tell you, and I tell Maggie this too, I would say that room is not as friendly as it used to be. I would say that, years ago, that group, after you get done with a meeting, usually go down to the hotel bar and you just hang out for a couple of hours. And that doesn't happen as much as it used to. And that may just be because I'm older now and the younger guys may in fact hang out with one another. But I think it's just, changed from that vantage point. And I think also the strain of, schools borrowing and taking players from one another kind of adds to the relationship part of it being a little bit more strained than it used to. It'll be fine when we're all done, because when you're done, you kind of drop your defenses and it's like, well, we were boys back then. But when you're competing, we're all competitive, and we have our own feelings towards what we do. So it probably becomes a little bit more strained.
Yeah, I want to ask you about just the climate in the game. It's totally different than when you got in. But it used to be commitments were off limit. Now it's, tampering with guys on your roster in season. We've had equipment stuff in the news. I'm still not convinced there's enough safeguards with that. Haven't, in the past, I know you've been on the rules committee, so I know you've tried to hit some of this stuff, I'm sure, head on. Is the game getting to a better place? Maybe, has it gotten to a better place than last year? What still needs to be done? Like if you're commissioner of college baseball, first of all, give me the state of things now, and tell me, if like you're the commissioner of college baseball, what are the things that you change?
Well, I think our game's in a very good state, and I'd say that just because of interest and facilities, and you can go to facilities of non-Power 4 schools, and they've really built up, and they've built up because of Power 4 schools that have had the resources, and then smaller schools have played catch up in a lot of areas. You look at schools like Coastal Carolina with unbelievable tradition, and they could have won 2 national championships like some of the bigger schools, and they're coming from a totally different spot than a lot of these Power 4 schools are. But I would say baseball is the one sport where there's more evenness and between a Belmont and a Lipscomb with a Vanderbilt. And I'm not saying they have the same resources, they don't, but once they get on the field, they certainly can compete at the same level, and they've done that. Wright State beat Vanderbilt last year in our own regional, so there's case in point right there. But I would tell you that's a good thing, not necessarily at that moment, but that's a good thing for schools that participate in college baseball, because you got 300 plus that do, and they all have a chance to play at the highest level. I would say the game itself is pretty good. It's as good from a competition standpoint as it's ever been, because the draft is smaller, so you're getting more players to come to college. So you are getting greater talent. And then that talent is being evaluated and drafted at a higher level than it's ever been drafted before. So I think that standpoint, you're seeing kids from SEC schools end up in the big leagues after 1 year. And it's not just Paul Skeens. It's a lot of different players, whether it's Dylan Cruz or anyone. You've just got a lot of good players. I would say the rules around the game are pretty good. I mean, we're trying to, at least in the SEC, I think the rule books are starting to kind of blend together a little bit more, which is good. There'll always be a difference between college and pro baseball because of the bats. But I do think there's a lot of things that Major League Baseball has done from a time standpoint that have been implemented in our game. Now, I think our game got a little bit slower last year, and that's because of the clock itself. We slowed it down. But I think all in all, I do think our game is in a pretty good spot, and it will continue to get better. Matt Boyer with the SEC, who's kind of the assistant commissioner who works specifically with baseball, he's done an unbelievable job with the SEC in terms of, and I'm on the rules committee, so I work hand in hand with Matt too. But I think he's done a really good job of implementing the right thoughts to Division I baseball and the chair there to try to build our sport within the conference so that we can build the sport nationally. And certainly with so many teams entering the postseason last year from our conference, that's been a good thing for our conference for sure.
With the move of Tony Vitello to the Giants, do you see that happening with more college coaches, or is that just kind of like a unique situation?
No, I think it could happen more and more. I think, Tony was one of those guys. I mean, Pat Murphy had done it before, but Pat Murphy also had been in professional baseball a while before he got elevated into managerial status. He actually was a manager interim with the San Diego Padres, but Murph is a special individual, and I mean that from a personality standpoint. He really, really understands people at a very, very high level. And I do think Tony does too. I think, now I'm not around Tony every day to understand his baseball acumen. He's obviously a good baseball coach, but I think he's a really good people person. He understands people. He's young enough to certainly understand professional players and understand their lifestyles and understands what they're about. Now it's a matter of him just identifying with a professional game and understanding what a manager is at that level, because it is going to be different. And I don't know it, so I can't comment on it, but it is going to be different than coaching college guys. College kids are very pure from a standpoint of they have to go to class and then it becomes baseball for them. Most aren't dealing with families and wives and kids and children and expenses and things like that. So their life is a little bit more pure. There's some pliability to a college kid because they're still learning, where you become 28 years old, 29 years old, the cement's dry. I mean, there's probably not a lot of pliability. You see things through a certain lens, and it's probably unchanging regardless of who you run into at the professional level. So that aspect is a little bit different. But I think Tony is the right type of personality to make that move from college to professional baseball. I think he'll do well. And I do think there are other people like him that will have that opportunity at some point down the road. It's just a matter of whether they want to make that jump. I like this lifestyle. Now it's continuous. It never ends. I mean, it's 12 months. There's not a, if a college student athlete is going to school, you're on. You're on. When you look at a parent and you say, I will share the responsibility for taking care of your son, you better mean that, because there's a lot of strength to that. Your phone is right near your bed, and it's because you're in charge of someone else's child, and that's heavy. The professional level, once you leave, then it's professional. It's almost like a job. You don't have to worry about that guy because he's on his own. He's old enough to where he's a grown man. He takes care of himself. Here, you're in charge of in helping someone else recognize their life and how they maneuver through life. So that's heavy.
Tim, this may be my last one. You've kind of had a little bit of a reboot with your program. You brought in Jason Esposito as your hitting coach, and Ty Blankmeyer's, I remember 2 or 3 years in, but like you guys are really, and what's on paper now and what gets to campus are different things, but you're getting back to the very top of the recruiting charts and those kind of things. Just talk about the energy those guys have brought to your program.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. I think number one is having Brownie here for 13 years. I love Brownie because Brownie is, it's almost like having another head coach. He sees the program in a way like I do, and he's someone that I can rely upon. That when I ask Brownie something, I'm getting a black and white answer, and there's a feeling behind it, and it's a strong feeling too, and I like that about him. I love who he is as a person. Nolan, his son, just committed to us the other day, which was a good thing. I don't even know. I probably shouldn't have said that because he's still a young kid. But Nolan feels like he's one of my stepchildren. So I have an affinity for Nolan as a person. But I think that's number one. Just having some strength with Brownie. Then, Ty. I knew Ty when he was 12, so I always felt like he was going to be a coach like Eddie, his dad, and Eddie and I are very close and have always been close. And when I hired Ty, it's just like I felt like Ty is so connected to young people, and he does such a good job of recognizing talent because he was a scout in professional baseball, understood professional baseball, but he understands people too. And I always thought, you mentioned Tony Vitello. Tony Vitello was a tremendous recruiter. And that's how he elevated himself to become a head coach. I think Ty falls in a very similar bracket that way. He just understands recruiting, understands people, and someday will be a head coach himself. So he's given our program, you look at our classes and you look at the human side of the classes, and I can say Ty has a lot to do with that. He's a runner. He's great. Espo it's so good to have a guy like him in our program, kind of like Mike Baxter, a kid who played for me. I love him. He's been in the pro game for 8 years. He's adapted well to this level. He communicates brilliantly with young people. He knows his craft, but he's not a know-it-all. I love him. I mean, they've just made this program so much better just by being in it. And I'm glad we have them. Our kids are very lucky to have those type of people, besides others that I haven't mentioned inside of our staff, that is very special to help them along.
Tim, I think we're out of questions. Just
Okay.
going to give you the floor as we leave. Anything notable with your program, your roster, that maybe are things that we should have asked you about that we didn't?
No, the roster size is good. I mean, we've got 39 kids, and they'll all be here during the course of the spring too. The only person that won't be participating this year is Deegan Cordova, who had Tommy John surgery last year, so he's going to miss the spring again. An amazing kid, though. To think about this, Chris, that this young man's going to pitch as a senior for the first time next year is unbelievable. But what he's done is he's given himself the strength to finish a degree, then probably get a graduate degree too. So it's special to have guys like that. But I love the kids in our program. I really do. We just finished with them yesterday, so they're all gone and leaving for Thanksgiving break. So another week we'll get with them again for 3 days, and then they'll be gone for 3.5 weeks for Christmas break. So it's a good time of year for our families, but certainly a good time of year to be grateful for what we have here at Vanderbilt. I'm very, very lucky, and to be with you too, Chris, over time. I mean, we've both been in this department for a long period of time, and I'm very grateful for your relationship, and I appreciate your patience over the years. You've seen every side of me possible, I think, as a person and as a professional. But I'm grateful for your patience, and I'm certainly grateful for what you do for our program too.
Well, grateful we had you on today. Thank you for that, and happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas to you and your family. And thanks for taking your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you both. Thank you, Graham.
Thanks, Coach.
You bet.
This is great.
All right. That's Vanderbilt baseball coach Tim Corbin. For Graham Doty and Chris Lee, thank you for watching us here at Southeastern 16.